People once trusted these stones with their lives. Warriors carried them into battle. Parents placed them near their children. Travelers refused to leave home without them, not because they were rare, not because they were valuable, but because they believed these gemstones could protect them from evil. And that raises a fascinating question. Why did so many civilizations, separated by centuries and thousands of miles, place their faith in remarkably similar stones? In this countdown, we'll explore 15 gemstones that were said to protect people from evil for centuries. Along the way, you'll discover forgotten traditions, ancient fears, and a surprising pattern that connects nearly every stone on this list. Because by the time we reach number 1, the biggest mystery may not be whether these stones had power. It may be why people needed them in the first place. Let's begin with a gemstone that many believed could absorb darkness before it reached them. Number 15, Smoky Quartz. Long before people feared hackers, economic collapse, or modern uncertainties, many feared something far more difficult to explain: an unseen force, a lingering darkness, a streak of bad luck that seemed to follow a person wherever they went. Across parts of ancient Scotland and the Celtic world, protection was not always imagined as a sword, a fortress, or an army. Sometimes protection came in the form of a crystal pulled from the earth itself. That crystal was smoky quartz. At first glance, there is nothing particularly intimidating about it. Unlike brilliant sapphires or fiery rubies, smoky quartz appears subdued, almost shadow-like. Its translucent brown and gray tones can seem unusually dark compared to many other gemstones. Yet that darkness may have been exactly why it earned a reputation as a protective stone. For centuries, people associated the crystal's smoky appearance with the ability to absorb harmful influences. Rather than reflecting danger away, smoky quartz was believed to draw negativity into itself, acting almost like a spiritual filter between the wearer and the unknown. Whether that belief had any basis beyond symbolism remains impossible to prove. What is clear is that the stone became deeply woven into local traditions. In Scotland, where smoky quartz is the national gemstone, it appeared in ceremonial jewelry, protective ornaments, and objects connected to cultural identity. Over time, stories surrounding the crystal evolved beyond simple decoration. It became a quiet guardian, a stone carried during uncertain journeys, a stone kept close during difficult periods, a stone trusted when answers were scarce. From a psychological perspective, that trust reveals something fascinating. Human beings have always searched for tangible objects to confront intangible fears. When danger cannot be seen, measured, or fully understood, even a simple mineral can become a symbol of control. And perhaps that is the real power of smoky quartz. Not necessarily what it was believed to do, but what it allowed people to feel. Safer, calmer, more prepared for whatever might be waiting beyond the next hill. But for some ancient civilizations, unseen negativity was not the greatest threat. The greatest threat was death itself, and the next gemstone earned its reputation among warriors who faced that possibility every single day. Number 14, Hematite. If smoky quartz was trusted against unseen negativity, hematite was trusted against something far more immediate: death. For most of human history, death was not an abstract concept discussed from a safe distance. It was a constant companion. Disease could strike without warning. Conflicts erupted with little notice. A journey that began in the morning might never reach its destination by nightfall. In such a world, protection was not a luxury. It was a necessity. That may explain why hematite earned one of the most fascinating reputations in the ancient world. At first glance, hematite appears dark gray or metallic black. But when cut, polished, or ground into powder, something unexpected emerges. The mineral leaves behind a deep red streak remarkably similar to the color of blood. To ancient civilizations, this was no ordinary coincidence. Many believed the stone carried a connection to life itself. Among the Romans, hematite became associated with Mars, the god of war. Soldiers sometimes carried amulets made from the mineral, believing it could provide strength, courage, or protection during battle. Whether it truly offered any protection was impossible to verify, but its symbolism was powerful. A warrior preparing to enter combat faced more than physical danger. There was fear, fear of injury, fear of defeat, fear of never returning home. Objects like hematite help transform uncertainty into confidence. Modern psychology offers an interesting perspective on this phenomenon. Throughout history, people have often relied on symbols during moments of extreme stress. Those symbols create a sense of control even when circumstances remain unpredictable. In that sense, hematite represented something larger than a gemstone. It became a physical reminder that courage could exist alongside fear. And that message resonated far beyond the battlefield. Over centuries, the stone continued to appear in protective jewelry, talismans, and cultural traditions across different regions of the world. Its reputation endured not because people agreed on its powers, but because they shared the same human need, the need to believe that something stood between them and danger. Yet for some ancient cultures, surviving physical threats was only part of the challenge, because many believed that the greatest dangers did not end when life ended. They began afterward, and the next gemstone became deeply connected to the mysterious boundary between the living and the dead. Number 13. Jet. For many ancient societies, death was not viewed as an ending. It was a transition, and that belief created an entirely new fear. What happens after the final breath? No civilization possessed a definitive answer. Yet across centuries, countless cultures developed rituals intended to protect both the living and the dead from whatever might exist beyond the visible world. Among the most unusual stones connected to those beliefs was jet. Unlike most gemstones on this list, jet is not a crystal formed deep within the earth. It is fossilized wood, ancient trees transformed over millions of years under immense pressure. In a way, jet already represented a journey from life into something else. Perhaps that is one reason it became so closely associated with death, mourning, and spiritual protection. Throughout parts of Europe, particularly during the Middle Ages, jet was worn during periods of grief and frequently incorporated into mourning jewelry. It was believed to offer protection during moments when the boundary between life and death felt especially fragile. Many traditions suggested that sorrow itself could attract unwanted spiritual influences. Whether those influences were viewed as evil spirits, curses, restless souls, or simply misfortune depended on the culture. But the underlying fear remained remarkably consistent. When people experience loss, they often feel vulnerable, and vulnerable people naturally search for protection. That psychological pattern appears again and again throughout history. A protective stone does not need to physically stop danger to become meaningful. Sometimes its value comes from creating a sense of security during moments when certainty has disappeared. Jet excelled at that role. Its deep black appearance made it unlike nearly every other ornamental stone available at the time. It absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Instead of appearing radiant or powerful, it seemed quiet, solemn, and mysterious. Perfect qualities for a gemstone linked to the unknown. Over generations, jet became more than decoration. It became a symbolic shield, a companion carried through grief, a reminder that even when answers could not be found, protection could still be sought. Yet some ancient cultures believed protection required more than comfort. They believed evil forces could actively target the living, and if that were true, simply surviving loss was not enough. The next gemstone earned its reputation because many believed it could create a barrier between a person and the darkness itself. Number 12. Tiger's Eye. Fear becomes far more dangerous when it arrives without warning. A storm can often be seen on the horizon. An enemy may reveal themselves before an attack, but hidden threats are different. They remain invisible until it is too late. For centuries, many cultures believed protection required more than strength. It required awareness, and few gemstones became more closely associated with vigilance than Tiger's Eye. With its golden brown bands and shifting light, Tiger's Eye appears almost alive. As the stone moves, bright streaks seem to glide across its surface, creating an effect that resembles the watchful gaze of an eye. Ancient civilizations found that appearance impossible to ignore. In parts of Egypt, India, and later throughout Europe, tiger's eye became associated with courage, awareness, and protection from harmful intentions. Many believed the stone helped its owner remain alert to deception, danger, and unseen threats. Whether those beliefs had any supernatural basis is impossible to know, but the symbolism was powerful. Predators survive because they notice danger early. Travelers survive because they recognize warning signs. Leaders succeed because they see risks before others do. Tiger's eye became a symbol of that same idea, a reminder that protection often begins with awareness. Throughout history, people have searched for ways to identify threats before they arrive. They studied the weather, watched animal behavior, and looked for patterns in the world around them. Tiger's eye represented that instinct, not merely defending against danger, but recognizing it first. And for many ancient cultures, that distinction made all the difference. Yet some believed awareness alone was not enough, because identifying danger means little if the threat remains hidden from view. And the next gemstone earned its reputation because many believed it could reveal what others could not see. The stone was obsidian. Number 11. Obsidian. Protecting against evil is one thing. Recognizing it before it strikes is something else entirely. Throughout history, some of humanity's greatest fears have shared one common characteristic. They were invisible. A hidden enemy, a secret betrayal, a curse no one could see, a danger that revealed itself only after the damage had already been done. For ancient civilizations, that uncertainty could be terrifying. And few gemstones became more closely associated with confronting the unknown than obsidian. Unlike the other stones on this list, obsidian is not technically a crystal. It is volcanic glass formed when molten lava cools so rapidly that minerals never have time to organize into crystal structures. The result is a surface unlike almost anything else found in nature. Dark, reflective, almost mirror-like. To modern eyes, it is beautiful. To many ancient cultures, it was something far more significant. Among the Aztecs and several Mesoamerican civilizations, polished obsidian mirrors held deep spiritual importance. These objects were not viewed merely as decorative items. They were often associated with rituals, divination, and attempts to gain insight into hidden realities. Whether those practices revealed anything supernatural is impossible to know, but their purpose tells a fascinating story. People wanted answers, not after danger appeared, before. That desire remains deeply human. Even today, individuals search constantly for warning signs. Financial markets are studied for clues. Weather forecasts predict storms. Security systems detect threats before they arrive. Ancient societies approached uncertainty differently, but the psychological need was remarkably similar. Obsidian became a symbol of awareness, a reminder that survival often depends on seeing what others miss. Its reflective surface may have strengthened that reputation. Looking into polished obsidian was not like looking into ordinary glass. The darkness seemed to swallow light, creating an experience that felt mysterious and, to some, unsettling. Perfect conditions for legends to grow. Over time, the stone became associated with uncovering hidden dangers, exposing deception, and revealing unseen influences. Not because anyone could prove it worked, but because it embodied something people desperately wanted, the ability to recognize a threat before it became a tragedy. Yet some fears were not focused on enemies, spirits, or hidden dangers. Some fears were much closer to home, because for countless parents throughout history, the greatest concern was protecting the people they loved most. And the next gemstone earned its reputation as a guardian of children long before modern ideas of protection ever existed. Number 10. Malachite. Throughout history, countless people searched for protection for themselves, but the strongest protective traditions often emerged when people feared for someone else, a child. Long before modern medicine, childhood was one of the most vulnerable stages of life. Diseases spread without explanation. Infant mortality was common. A minor illness that would be easily treated today could become life-threatening in a matter of days. For parents living thousands of years ago, uncertainty was a constant reality. And when answers were unavailable, many turned to symbols of protection. One of the most remarkable examples was malachite. With its vivid green bands and swirling patterns, malachite is one of the most recognizable minerals in the world. Yet its reputation in ancient societies extended far beyond its appearance. In ancient Egypt, malachite was associated with protection, renewal, and life. Archaeological evidence suggests it was used in jewelry, amulets, cosmetics, and ceremonial objects. Over time, stories surrounding the stone evolved, and many traditions came to view it as a guardian against harmful influences. Children, in particular, became closely connected to these beliefs. Some families placed protective amulets near infants. Others incorporated the stone into personal ornaments intended to ward off misfortune. Whether those practices provided actual protection is impossible to determine, but the emotional logic behind them is easy to understand. When people cannot eliminate danger, they often seek ways to feel less powerless. That instinct remains unchanged today. Parents baby-proof homes, install monitors, track locations, check symptoms online. Ancient parents had different tools, but the motivation was remarkably similar. They wanted reassurance. They wanted to believe that something stood watch when they could not. Malachite became one of the symbols that fulfilled that role. Its striking green patterns may have contributed to its reputation. Some observers saw shapes resembling eyes within the stone's natural bands. Across many cultures, eyes were often linked to awareness, vigilance, and protection. A stone that appeared to watch over its owner naturally inspired powerful stories, and those stories endured because they addressed one of humanity's deepest fears. Not fear for oneself, fear for loved ones. Yet children were not the only people facing uncertainty. For others, danger waited far from home. Across vast oceans where storms appeared without warning and horizons seemed endless, another gemstone earned a reputation as a protector against forces no sailor could control. And its story would travel farther than almost any gemstone on this list. Number 9. Aquamarine. Few environments have inspired more fear throughout human history than the open ocean. A forest may offer shelter. A city may provide walls. A mountain may allow retreat. But at sea, there is nowhere to hide. For thousands of years, sailors ventured into vast waters with limited knowledge of what awaited them. Storms appeared without warning. Navigation errors could leave ships hopelessly lost. Entire crews sometimes vanished without explanation, leaving behind only rumors and legends. In such an unpredictable world, protection became more than a desire. It became a necessity. That is where aquamarine enters the story. Named from the Latin words for water of the sea, aquamarine possesses a color that seems almost perfectly suited to its reputation. Its pale blue hues resemble calm tropical waters, creating an immediate visual connection to the ocean itself. Yet ancient sailors saw more than beauty in this gemstone. Across various maritime traditions, aquamarine became associated with safe voyages, protection from danger, and favorable conditions at sea. Some legends even claim the stone originated from the treasure chests of mermaids, creatures believed to possess influence over the oceans. Whether anyone truly believed those stories mattered less than what they represented. Hope. Because hope is often what people cling to when certainty disappears. From a psychological perspective, aquamarine reveals something fascinating about human behavior. When individuals enter situations they cannot fully control, they frequently adopt symbols that provide reassurance. Athletes wear lucky items. Travelers develop rituals. Soldiers carry keepsakes. Ancient sailors were no different. Every voyage involved risk. Every horizon concealed uncertainty. Every storm reminded crews how fragile their lives could be. Aquamarine became one of the symbols that helped transform fear into confidence, not because it guaranteed safety, but because it offered something many people desperately needed before facing the unknown: a sense of protection, a belief that they were not entirely alone against forces far larger than themselves. And perhaps that explains why stories surrounding the gemstone survived for centuries. The ocean changed. Ships evolved, navigation became more advanced, yet the human desire for reassurance never disappeared. But some cultures believed true protection did not come from surviving dangerous journeys. They believed it came from maintaining balance between the visible world and the unseen forces surrounding it. And no gemstone became more closely connected to that idea than the next one on this list. Number 8. Jade. Not every culture viewed evil in the same way. Some imagined hostile spirits, others feared curses, bad omens, or supernatural forces. But in many parts of ancient Asia, particularly in China, danger was often understood through a different lens. The greatest threat was not always an enemy, it was imbalance. An imbalance between heaven and earth, between people and nature, between actions and consequences. When harmony was lost, misfortune could follow, and few gemstones became more closely associated with restoring that harmony than jade. For thousands of years, jade occupied a unique position in Chinese civilization. It was not merely admired for its beauty or rarity, it was revered as a symbol of virtue, wisdom, purity, and protection. Emperors treasured it, scholars praised it, families passed it down through generations. Its importance extended far beyond ornamentation. Many believed jade could help preserve balance within a person's life and environment. Because disorder was often viewed as the source of suffering, maintaining harmony became a form of protection in itself. This is what makes jade's story so different from many of the stones on this list. Earlier gemstones were often associated with defending against threats after they appeared. Jade represented a more proactive idea. Prevent the imbalance. Prevent the danger, prevent the conditions that allow misfortune to grow. Modern psychology reveals a surprisingly similar pattern. People frequently seek stability when facing uncertainty. Daily routines, traditions, and rituals help create a sense of order in a chaotic world. Even when circumstances cannot be controlled, maintaining balance can reduce fear and increase resilience. Ancient societies understood this intuitively. Jade became one of the symbols that embodied that philosophy. Its smooth texture, durability, and calming green tones likely reinforced its reputation. Unlike stones associated with battle, death, or confrontation, jade projected a sense of peace, and that peace was often viewed as a protective force. Over centuries, the gemstone became deeply woven into cultural beliefs surrounding health, prosperity, family, and spiritual well-being. Not because it promised victory over evil, but because it represented something many people considered even more powerful: a life lived in balance. Yet some cultures believed balance alone was not enough, because even in a harmonious world, harmful influences could still linger. What was needed next was not balance. It was purification. And the next gemstone earned an extraordinary reputation because people across multiple civilizations believed it could cleanse away what should never have been there in the first place. Number 7. Clear quartz. What if evil was not something that attacked from the outside? What if it slowly accumulated over time? That idea appears in many cultures throughout history. Long before modern science could explain disease, emotional stress, or environmental influences, people often believed that unseen negativity could linger around places, objects, and even individuals. Misfortune was rarely viewed as random. Something must have caused it. Something must have remained behind. And if harmful influences could accumulate, then perhaps they could also be removed. This belief helps explain why clear quartz became one of the most widely respected protective stones in human history. Unlike many gemstones on this list, clear quartz does not belong to a single civilization, religion, or tradition. Variations of its reputation appear across multiple continents and cultures, often developing independently from one another. That fact alone makes its story remarkable. Ancient Greeks believed crystal quartz was ice so deeply frozen it could never melt. Various indigenous cultures valued clear crystals in spiritual ceremonies. In parts of Asia, Europe, and the Americas, transparent quartz repeatedly became associated with clarity, purification, and protection. The question is why? What made so many different societies arrive at similar conclusions? Part of the answer may lie in the stone itself. Clear quartz possesses an unusual visual quality. It appears almost pure, almost untouched. Light passes through it in a way that creates an impression of transparency and openness. To people living thousands of years ago, such characteristics could easily take on symbolic meaning. A stone that appeared clear became associated with clearing away confusion. A stone that transmitted light became associated with revealing truth. And a stone linked to truth naturally became connected to protection. Because throughout history, ignorance was often considered one of the greatest dangers of all. From a psychological perspective, purification rituals serve an important purpose. They create a sense of renewal. They allow people to believe that yesterday's problems do not have to define tomorrow. That sense of starting fresh is powerful, and clear quartz became one of the enduring symbols of that possibility. Not because anyone could prove it removed evil, but because it represented the idea that darkness did not have to remain forever, that harmful influences could be cleared away. That balance could be restored. Yet some civilizations believed protection required something even more powerful than purification. They believed protection came from sacred authority itself, and few gemstones became more closely connected to kings, priests, and divine power than the next stone on this list. Number 6. Lapis Lazuli. Throughout history, one question has repeatedly shaped human belief. Who can be trusted to protect us? For some, the answer was family. For others, it was tradition. But in many ancient civilizations, protection was believed to come from a higher source entirely, the divine. And few gemstones became more closely associated with that idea than lapis lazuli. Long before diamonds dominated the modern jewelry industry, lapis lazuli was among the most prized stones in the ancient world. Its deep royal blue color, often scattered with tiny golden flecks of pyrite, resembled a night sky filled with stars. To many early civilizations, that appearance felt almost supernatural. It looked less like a stone and more like a fragment of heaven itself. This perception helped elevate lapis lazuli far beyond ordinary ornamentation. In ancient Egypt, it became closely connected to royalty, spirituality, and sacred authority. It appeared in amulets, ceremonial objects, burial artifacts, and religious symbolism. Some of the most famous treasures discovered in Egyptian tombs contain remarkable examples of the stone. Its presence was rarely accidental. It was chosen because it represented access to something greater than human power, and that distinction matters. Earlier stones on this list were often trusted because they symbolized protection against danger. Lapis lazuli represented protection through connection, a connection to divine wisdom, divine order, divine favor. From a psychological perspective, this reveals a powerful pattern found throughout history. People often feel safer when they believe a trusted authority is watching over them. Whether that authority is a leader, a religious figure, or a spiritual force, the effect is remarkably similar. Uncertainty becomes easier to endure. Fear becomes more manageable. The burden of facing the unknown feels lighter. Lapis lazuli became a symbol of that reassurance. Its extraordinary color only strengthened the belief. In a world where most people would never see the vastness of the cosmos as it is understood today, the gemstone's celestial appearance naturally inspired awe. And awe has always been one of the strongest foundations of faith. Perhaps that is why the stone retained its reputation for thousands of years. Not because it promised to eliminate danger, but because it suggested that protection might come from a power greater than oneself. Yet even divine protection could not remove every threat. Because some dangers appeared suddenly without warning in deserts, mountains, battlefields, and distant frontiers. And when survival itself was at stake, one gemstone became trusted by cultures separated by oceans and centuries alike. Its reputation as a protective stone would spread farther than almost any other on this list. Number 5. Turquoise. What happens when cultures separated by oceans, deserts, and centuries all arrive at a remarkably similar belief? That question sits at the heart of turquoise's extraordinary story. By the time many gemstones became associated with protection, their reputations were often tied to a specific region or tradition. Turquoise was different. Its reputation traveled. From the ancient civilizations of Persia to indigenous cultures across North America, turquoise repeatedly emerged as a stone linked to protection, safety, and good fortune. The people who valued it spoke different languages, practiced different religions, lived in entirely different environments. Yet many reached a surprisingly similar conclusion. This stone could help protect those who carried it. That alone makes turquoise one of the most fascinating gemstones on this list. For ancient Persians, turquoise was often associated with protection from misfortune and danger. In some traditions, changes in the stone's appearance were interpreted as warnings that trouble might be approaching. Thousands of miles away, various Native American cultures also developed deep respect for turquoise. The stone appeared in ceremonial objects, jewelry, trade networks, and spiritual traditions, frequently carrying associations with protection, strength, and connection to the natural world. Of course, no historical evidence suggests the stone could literally predict danger, but that may not be the most important part of the story. The more interesting question is why so many people wanted to believe it could. Human beings have always searched for warning signs: a dark cloud before a storm, an unusual sound before an earthquake, a sudden silence in the wilderness. Recognizing danger before it arrives has always increased the chances of survival. Turquoise became a symbol of that desire, a reminder that perhaps the world offers signals if people pay close enough attention. Its vivid blue-green color may have strengthened this reputation. Resembling both sky and water, the stone naturally connected two of the most powerful forces in human experience: the heavens above and the life-giving resources below. Few gemstones carried such universal symbolism. Perhaps that is why its reputation crossed so many borders, not because everyone shared the same beliefs, but because they shared the same fears, and they shared the same hope that protection might be possible. Yet some ancient traditions believed the greatest threats were not found in the outside world at all. They believed danger could emerge from within the human mind itself, and the next gemstone earned its reputation by helping people confront exactly that fear. Number 4. Amethyst. Not every threat comes from the outside world. Some of the most dangerous battles in human history have taken place within the mind. Fear, temptation, impulsive decisions, loss of self-control. Long before neuroscience and psychology attempted to explain human behavior, ancient civilizations were already searching for ways to protect themselves from these invisible dangers. And few gemstones became more closely associated with that struggle than amethyst. Its story begins in the ancient Mediterranean world, where self-control was considered one of the most important virtues a person could possess. To many ancient societies, losing control was not merely embarrassing, it was dangerous. A reckless decision could destroy a reputation. A moment of poor judgment could cost a fortune. An impulsive act could start a war. Because of this, protection was not always defined as surviving physical threats. Sometimes protection meant guarding the mind itself. Amethyst became deeply connected to that idea. The gemstone's distinctive purple color made it stand out immediately among ancient treasures. Purple was rare, prestigious, and often associated with wisdom, nobility, and spiritual authority. Over time, traditions emerged linking amethyst to clarity of thought and protection against harmful influences that clouded judgment. Whether those influences were interpreted as temptation, intoxication, negative emotions, or spiritual corruption depended on the culture. But the underlying concern remained remarkably consistent. How can a person remain in control when powerful forces are pulling in the opposite direction? That question still resonates today. Modern life may look very different from the ancient world, yet people continue to struggle with distraction, anxiety, unhealthy habits, and emotional overwhelm. The details change. Human nature does not. This is one reason amethyst has remained one of the most recognizable protective stones in history. It symbolized something timeless: the belief that strength begins internally. That protection is not only about defending against external danger, it is also about preserving clarity when confusion takes over. Perhaps that explains why the stone appeared in religious objects, royal collections, and spiritual traditions across centuries, not because it promised power over others, but because it represented mastery over oneself, and many cultures believed that was the highest form of protection. Yet there was one idea even more mysterious than self-control. Some ancient traditions believed protection could come from something hidden within the stone itself. Not its color, not its rarity, but the light trapped inside it. And the next gemstone became famous because people believed it carried a piece of the sky. Number 3. Labradorite. By this point in history, protection was no longer just about surviving danger. It was about understanding the forces behind it. Many ancient traditions believed that the world contained more than what human eyes could see. There were hidden energies, unseen influences, and mysteries that existed just beyond ordinary perception. And few gemstones seem to support that belief more convincingly than labradorite. At first glance, labradorite can appear surprisingly ordinary, a gray stone, sometimes dull, sometimes unremarkable. But then something extraordinary happens. As light strikes its surface from the right angle, flashes of blue, green, gold, and even violet seem to ignite from within. The effect is so dramatic that it hardly looks natural. It looks alive. For centuries, this unusual phenomenon inspired stories that blurred the line between geology and mythology. One of the most famous legends comes from the Inuit peoples of northern Canada. According to tradition, the northern lights had once been trapped inside the rocks along the Labrador coast. When a warrior struck the stone, some of that celestial light escaped into the sky. The light that remained became labradorite. Whether the legend is true is beside the point. The story reveals something deeper. Human beings have always been fascinated by things that appear to contain hidden power. Not obvious power. Hidden power. A sword demonstrates its strength immediately. A fortress displays its protection openly. But labradorite suggested something different. That true protection might come from forces that remain invisible until they are needed. This idea appears repeatedly throughout history. Many cultures believe the strongest guardians were not always the ones that could be seen. Sometimes protection worked quietly, silently, in the background, much like the hidden flashes inside the stone itself. From a psychological perspective, labradorite taps into one of humanity's oldest desires, the belief that there may be more to reality than what is immediately visible. That unseen help may exist. That hidden strength may be available when circumstances become overwhelming. And perhaps that is why the stone continues to capture attention even today. Because every generation faces uncertainty. And every generation hopes there is something beyond the darkness. Yet among all the gemstones associated with protection, one has managed to remain remarkably relevant in the modern world. Not because of an ancient legend, not because of royal approval, but because millions of people still turn to it whenever they feel surrounded by negativity. And its reputation may be stronger today than at any point in history. Number 2. Black Tourmaline. Thousands of years have passed since the earliest protective stones appeared. Empires have risen and fallen. Religions have spread across continents. Science has transformed humanity's understanding of the world. And yet something remarkable remains unchanged. People still want protection, not necessarily from the same dangers, but from the same feelings. Fear, stress, uncertainty, negativity. That may explain why no gemstone on this list has experienced a stronger modern resurgence than black tourmaline. Unlike many protective stones whose reputations are rooted primarily in ancient history, black tourmaline occupies a unique position. Its story is still being written. Today, it is one of the most widely recognized gemstones associated with protection against negative influences. It appears in modern crystal collections, meditation spaces, spiritual practices, and personal rituals across the world. But why? Why would a mineral discovered centuries ago remain relevant in an age of satellites, artificial intelligence, and scientific advancement? The answer may have very little to do with the stone itself, and everything to do with human nature, because while technology has changed dramatically, the human brain has not. People still experience anxiety. People still encounter conflict. People still struggle with uncertainty about the future. The threats may look different now, but the emotional experience is surprisingly familiar. Ancient travelers feared storms. Modern individuals fear instability. Ancient societies feared curses. Modern people fear toxic environments, overwhelming stress, and relentless negativity. Different language, similar emotions. Black tourmaline became a symbol capable of bridging those worlds. Its appearance certainly helped. Dense, dark, and often heavily striated, the stone looks strong, solid, protective. It resembles something built to endure pressure. And throughout history, people have naturally assigned protective qualities to objects that appear resilient. Perhaps that is why the stone resonates so strongly with modern audiences, not because it promises magical solutions, but because it represents a timeless human desire. The desire to create a boundary between oneself and whatever feels harmful. To believe that negativity does not have to control the future. To feel protected, even when certainty is impossible. And that brings this journey to one final question. If so many civilizations across thousands of years searched for protection from evil, which gemstone earned a reputation so enduring that its story survived empires, religions, and entire eras of human history? The answer lies in the final stone, a gemstone whose connection to protection has remained remarkably consistent for centuries, and whose story may reveal more about human nature than any other stone on this list. Number 1. Black onyx. After thousands of years of myths, rituals, traditions, and protective symbols, one question remains. Why do so many cultures keep returning to the same idea? The idea that something can stand between a person and evil. Not wealth, not power, not status, protection. That search appears again and again throughout human history, and few gemstones have carried that reputation as consistently as black onyx. Long before modern discussions about energy, spirituality, or personal well-being, dark stones were often viewed as symbols of strength and defense. Among them, black onyx earned a particularly enduring place. Its story stretches across multiple civilizations. Ancient Egypt valued it. Persian traditions referenced it. Roman artisans carved it into amulets and protective objects. Centuries later, versions of those beliefs continued to appear across Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. What makes this remarkable is not that people shared identical beliefs. They did not. The details changed, the legends changed, the explanations changed, yet the purpose remained surprisingly similar. Protection. Again and again, black onyx appeared whenever people sought a symbolic barrier against harmful forces. Sometimes those forces were described as curses, sometimes as evil spirits, sometimes as misfortune, sometimes as negative influences that could not easily be explained. The names differed, the fear did not. And perhaps that is the most important lesson hidden within this stone's history. Human beings have always struggled with uncertainty. There has never been a generation free from it. Ancient farmers worried about drought. Sailors feared storms, warriors feared battle, parents feared loss. Modern people face different challenges, yet the emotional experience remains strikingly familiar. The desire to feel safe, the desire to feel protected, the desire to believe that darkness does not have the final word. Black onyx became one of the most enduring symbols of that hope. Not because anyone could prove it possessed supernatural power, but because it represented something deeply human. The belief that courage is possible even when certainty is not. The belief that protection can exist even when danger remains. And perhaps that is why its reputation survived for centuries while countless other beliefs faded away. Because at its core, the story of black onyx is not really the story of a gemstone. It is the story of humanity. A story that began thousands of years ago and continues today. And when viewed through that lens, a fascinating possibility emerges. Maybe the true power of these stones was never hidden inside the minerals themselves. Maybe their greatest power came from what they inspired in the people who carried them. Hope, confidence, resilience, and the courage to keep moving forward despite the unknown. After all 15 gemstones, one pattern stands out. Across centuries and civilizations, people kept returning to the same idea, the belief that protection could be found in something they could hold in their hands. Whether these stones truly possessed protective power may never be known, but their stories reveal something timeless about human nature: the desire for hope, the search for protection, and the courage to face the unknown. Which of these gemstones surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring the history, legends, and mysteries behind the world's most fascinating gemstones, be sure to subscribe for more discoveries. Thanks for watching.